What is a glaze? What is a glaze? What do you think a glaze is?
To make the color pop a little more.
Okay, so it could make the color pop a little bit more.
Oh, you're just asking.
Yeah.
It's not paint.
It's not paint. Nice. Yeah.
It's a glass kind of liquid with coloring, as far as I understand, and so you paint it on, and you fire it, and then it becomes color. Is that how it is?
Okay, it's a glass, but it doesn't have to have color. So a lot of times when it comes to glaze, we think, and this is how most people describe it, they'll say it's a colorful, shiny, food-safe coating. Okay, that's what they think it is, and that is what it is. But the way I want you to think about it is, whatever you put on to make your piece finished in whatever realm it needs to be. So if it's a functional piece like your mugs, it needs to have a glass, it needs to have a smooth surface on it so that it's food safe. But whatever you need to do to finish off your piece and whatever material. Now that's a pretty general direction, but we're going to cover a couple of things today. We've talked about 3 kinds of colors. What are the 3 things we've talked about so far? How to put color or a glaze on. Yeah.
You want me to just go like step by step on how to put glaze on? Is that what you're saying?
Nope. The 3 types of materials we can put on that are color or glaze. All right, here and then there.
Talking like underglaze.
Okay, underglaze is one, for sure. Colored slip is another. What's the 3rd one we've talked about? Just straight on dipping glaze, right? Okay. So, on your sheet, when it says, when choosing a color or glaze, what are the basic steps to make sure you get your desired result? The first thing is you need to know what materials you have access to and when to use them. Because if you choose one that's not at the right time and choose another, you could mess up your project. So you need to know what materials you have access to. You need to know what the results could be. And then also what your intentions for those results are. They're going to change. For our mugs, we want our mugs to be colorful and shiny, right? So we put on colored slip. Some of you used an underglaze, and then once they're bisque fired, we dip them in glaze and they become colorful and shiny. For this project, the luminaries, you remember what we're doing for the surface? We're antiquing it, so we're going to be making our surfaces, there's going to be color on it, but it's going to be a little more dull. It's not going to be shiny, but then you're also going to have the option of doing spot shiny glazes if you want to. Okay, and we'll cover that today. So, back here, we have colored slip, right? We get our intended color from here. Oh, I missed that. What's my definition of a working glaze? Do you remember? It's 4 parts. I'll tell you the last one. Desired result. So we pick a glaze or a color because I want that green. Okay? So now what do I do with that? Okay, so materials mixed together, applied appropriately, fired to a specific temperature to get the desired result. that is the second question. So that is my working definition of a glaze. It's not what you'll find in any dictionary. It's materials mixed together, applied appropriately, fired to a specific temperature, no thank you, to get a desired result. Okay, so colored slip. When and how do you know how to put that on? Before firing, and that is so important. Because if you grab the colored slip and try to put it onto your bisqueware, you're going to mess things up. Okay, so before firing, and so far just with a paintbrush. There's other ways to put it on, but with a paintbrush. Okay, now we come over here. And we have underglaze. And there's speedball, and there's coyote, and the big bucket of white. Anyone use underglaze for your project? Anyone use white? Okay, the actual white bucket is underglaze, and why that's underglaze is it has titanium in it. And it makes it an actual white instead of just a slip color or a clay color. When and how do we apply underglaze? Before firing and after firing. So if you were to do your mug and you're like, oh, I forgot to paint the eyes blue. Okay, you can't go back and use the colored slip, but you could come over here. Oh, my blue's on the table up front here. And you could grab this blue and paint those on for the eyes. You could do that because this can go on before or after we bisque fire it. Okay? Now, why does that matter now? Because we're going to talk about antiquing. And antiquing comes from we add color to our piece, we get it bone dry, and we fire it. So whether you're using colored slip or underglaze, it doesn't matter. But once we fire it, that color becomes part of the clay. They call that sintered, C-I-N-T-E-R-E-D, sintered. And that just means that it's now part of the clay body. And it won't come off. And so what does that look like? So I ran out of things I had color on. So right here, I have a piece I started antiquing. And can you see the green underneath it? The green was put on before, so if I keep wiping this, the black will come off, but the green never will, because the green is part of the bisque now. Okay? So you're gonna put colors down, bisque fire it, and then you're gonna add a dark color. Now, a little bit of a guide here. If you put dark colors down and think you're going to put a light color to antique, it's not going to work very well. Because light colors tend to be translucent, and dark colors tend to be opaque, which means you can't see through them. So as we're going, and you have an idea, talk me through it, but for the most part, we put dark colors so that they go down into the cracks and not light colors. You can use light colors, but you shouldn't have a dark color already there first. That's been sintered, right? It's already been fired. Does that make sense? So the process so far, just to make sure we're clear. We make it, we add color to it, we bisque fire it. Then we come and we're gonna add a dark color usually to our piece and then wipe it down. So that looks like this. So I didn't put any colors on this, and I meant to. I was kind of in a hurry this weekend. But we have our project, and we're going to add a color to it. So we're going to come here. Now, just to be super clear, dark underglazes, dark glazes, reds, purples, blacks, dark blues, stain clothes. So don't go flipping this around. Okay, it will stain clothes. And I'm just going to come in here and paint this on. It's a pretty quick process. And paint it on there. Put that back there. And the lid back on. And I put some blue on. Those are the only two colors I brought over. But and we'll put blue on this side. Now, when you put this on, it should dry. It doesn't have to, but it should. And for how long? You could let this sit for 5 years and still come back and wipe this off. It'll be just fine. There might be a layer of dust on it, but it'll be just fine. Can you? Sure. Should you? I don't know. We do. What you don't want to do is glaze your project with real glaze, not underglaze. No, sorry, not wiping it down, but with glaze. You don't want to put that glass on top of the dust because that's like your dirty hands. It'll cause problems. All right, so now we're going to antique this. You could do just this and leave it. And you'd be like, I want a blue roof. I forgot to put blue on my roof earlier. I want a blue roof. Great, that's fine. When we go to spot glaze our project, we're going to talk about paint on glaze in a second. I don't want to see more than about a third of your project covered with a shiny glaze. We're not going to dip the whole thing. We're going to have kind of that antique look happening. So we're going to grab a sponge, get it wet, squeeze it out. You can do this at your table with a bucket. You can do it over the sink. Make sure you put something down so it doesn't get all over the tables though. And we're going to start to wipe this. And all the little cracks are going to pick stuff up. Now we can leave extra information. So like through here, if I want to, I can also rub just a little bit more firmly. So I could come up here, really wipe that down, and there's going to be a difference between the top and the bottom. And everyone gets to decide what that looks like for you. I like the ghosting or shadowing, but maybe you don't. Maybe you want that to just be mostly in those lines, so there's not a whole lot of shadowing going on, and that should be good. And let's do the blue. If your lines or your cracks or your texture is really wide and you push really hard with your sponge, you're going to clean that out. So you've got to kind of pay attention to that. These little lines hold the colored underglaze pretty well. Okay, so we got that. Just wipe these just a little bit. And it'll give us kind of that weathered antique look. And as beginners, you don't really know, so you're just hoping for the best. Yeah, we got some stuff happening there. A little bit in that dragonfly. I didn't mean to get some on there, but just kind of wipe that in, and that'll be there. Okay, antiquing. It's pretty simple. You're not going to be antiquing. Let's say you start this project first. So if you made mugs first, then got on the wheel, you're going to start your luminary lanterns first. So you're going to start on Thursday. You're going Thursday, Monday, Wednesday. Next Friday is a half day, not for school, but a half day in class for kind of transitioning from one thing to another, kind of finish up, get on wherever we need to go. You'll be turning your projects in that Friday, those of you who are making lanterns, and then you'll be getting those bisque fired, so you won't be another week almost till you get to antique your stuff. So we're 2.5 weeks out before you even need to worry about this. So we'll have these examples for you so you can see what they look like, and then you can kind of start asking questions about what you want to accomplish. Okay, any questions there? All right, the next thing, paint on glaze. So we're gonna walk over here. So if it's materials mixed together, applied appropriately, applied to a specific temperature to get a desired result. We open up this cupboard, there's some glazes here. There's a ton of glazes out on the cupboard. All of these I'm going through and checking and seeing which ones are good, which ones are bad. Some of them are so little we're not going to use them. But how do you pick a glaze over here? These are paint-on glazes. Let's go with this first. Have you seen that before? It looks like underglaze, right? So this is where there's a reason why they're over here and those are over there. They're not the same. Underglaze and paint-on glazes are not the same. You've got to pay attention to it. So the next thing we need to start paying attention to is, what does the bottle say? Okay? So this bottle says Cone 5/6 glaze. Those say underglaze. This bottle has a square picture on it that has a circular picture on it. And we put them on at different times. So make sure you're paying attention to those things. Now, we come over here to grab them as a, wow, I just went blank, for our desired result. So we come and pick a glaze. There's clear, there's black, cactus green. Some other attributes, you have opaque glazes. So when you look at the square, you won't see any texture underneath it. You have some semi-translucent or semi-opaque glazes, then you have some translucent glazes. And you're going to be able to see all the way through those translucent glazes. We're going to grab orange, and then I have some others over here. All right, write this down. Every time I pick up a glaze, because it's materials that's mixed together, I have to shake this up, but every time I open the lid, so write this down, I open the lid, I look inside to see what's happening. Does it look thin? Does it look thick? This one looks all right. I've got this one here, I need to fix. It's awfully chunky, right? I'm not gonna put that on my piece, but I do want to stop there for a second. What color is that? But that's the color it comes out. So it's this dark red, but it comes out this translucent brown yellow. So you've got to go off of this. The next thing we've got to go off of is reading the label. This tells me, once I get this fixed, apply 3 coats of glaze to bisqueware. Make sure you're reading the label. These, almost all of the Coyote glazes, say 2 to 3 coats. So 2 coats is good, 3 coats is good. 4 is not good, 5 is not good. You're adding too much glass. So back to this. Every single time I look and see what's happening, I put the lid back on tight. And then I'm going to shake it up with my fingers or my thumb on top, whatever's most comfortable to you. And I always do it over in a garbage can or at the sink. Because sometimes there's something blocking the thread and it'll leak a little bit. And if you're throwing it over here, you might get it all over your clothes. If you're not putting your fingers on top and it's open just a little bit and you don't pay attention, you could shake that and it could go flying everywhere. Okay, so every time I take that, I open it, I check what's going on inside, I close it, I shake it up. If you don't know if it's good or not, like if you open this, I'd be like, oh, we've got to hydrate that. That's way chunky. You don't want to use that. And then we would hydrate it. There's some others. This one's the same. I need to hydrate this. I think this one's good. Deep fire brick. Goes on purple, but it comes out kind of a reddish, dark red. So every time, open it, shut it, put my finger on the top, and then shake it. You can shake it away from you and that's fine, but I almost always go to a garbage can or to the sink, just in case it does spill a little bit. You don't want it everywhere. Okay, so we've read it. Some of them don't have instructions on it. And really it's because I get this one in a gallon size, and so it doesn't have its own bottle. And we're gonna apply it. Unicorn horn, hydroscale, ancient iron, creamy with specks, orange, black. I'm not gonna put that on. So let's put some of this on, and you can decide where it goes. Now, remember, you have about a third of your project you can add to. You don't have to add any, but you can add some. So I was thinking I could put something over that dragonfly. So I would just get myself a nice little brush. I already shook this up. And I think I told you to read it. Stir well, apply to bisque, 1 coat for dipping or pouring, 2 to 3 coats for brushing. If you don't want to read these labels, as long as it says, let me rephrase that, as long as it doesn't say underglaze, 3 coats. That's what you should be shooting for. But it's 2 to 3 coats. So I'm going to come in here. And I'm going to put that over. Now, the blue that's under might show through a little bit, and that'll be okay. It also might not. It should take about 2 minutes or less for the first coat, well, probably a minute for the first coat to dry, about 2 minutes for the second coat, and 3 to 5 for the third, because we're adding a lot of water to the clay or ceramic piece. Okay, that's good there. So that's 1 coat. Let me grab another piece. We'll just go. Oh, I had another piece on this table. Oh, right there, smiley face piece. It's such a happy little house. So we're gonna just put glaze on this. I'm not going to antique it. Throw some glaze in here. You can be more specific. I do have smaller brushes. Now, if it says 3 coats, you should put 3 coats on. You can put 2, you can put 1. You're just not going to get the same results as you thought you would. And if you want to try something new, as long as you keep it under 3 coats, if you want to layer one glaze over another, you're more than welcome to, because you're still under that 3 coat limit, because that's the materials mixed together applied appropriately. And appropriately literally just means the amount of glaze that can melt before it starts to run down your piece. So I'm going to come in here, and over this orange I'm going to put this other color, and over the other color I'm going to put orange. And I might get two nice looking glazes, I might get two really ugly glazes. Probably not ugly though. And the layering combination is going to change. And if you came to me and said, well, what if I do this over this? I'm going to be like, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like. So we're going to do a big swatch here. One big coat of orange, just to see what happens. One big coat of hydroscale. And then we're going to cover that as well. Just another coat of hydroscale over the orange, and another coat of orange over the hydroscale. And by covering it, I should get a whole different glaze. Okay? Because it's the different materials that are mixed together. All right, I'm not going to spend too much time on that. We'll cover this again just slightly in a couple of weeks to remind you of what we're doing. But you can plan ahead as you're making, stamping your project, as you're cutting your project. On these over here, I created areas that I did glazing. So little cutouts, little stripes, things like that. So like windows would be good for some of this glazing. This is going to be a black diamond, and then we have these areas here that have the colors in them as well. And so those should stick out just a little bit from the other stuff because they're going to be shinier or brighter or whatever, right? Any questions there? No? Anyone super confused?
What happens if you put more than 3 coats on?
So more than 3 coats, if probably 4 or 5 coats, it can melt down. It'll just keep going because the glass itself will be so thick that it'll just keep going down your piece. Yeah, so just keep it to 3. Just makes life easier. There's somebody who can skirt that issue or that rule, but let's try not to in this class because we want our projects to come out